back to Runway from the Rav, a Project Runway podcast. My name is Riley.
And I'm Maggie.
And today we'll be discussing All Stars Season 6, Episode 2, Damsels in Distress. So this episode, Alyssa Milano was in the workroom when the designers walked in, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so weird that she's in here. And I'm like, it's so weird that you walk there first and not somewhere else. So normally you're like in a stadium or next to a river or in a skyscraper. You're like, why are we here? And this time I was like, why is Alyssa in our room? Like, so that was kind of odd, but she told them that the challenge this time, the workroom had like mannequins with like cross tape over it, and it had like cages and stuff, and it was all just in a big mess. And she said that they needed to make a post-apocalyptic inspired look that had at least 2 techniques of distressing done to it. And so she was like, we have blow torches, spray paint, all kinds of stuff that you can use to distress your looks, and you have to use at least 2 techniques. And then you also had to have a story of the scenario that your model was going through or survived on the way to the runway. And I guess that was just like an extra little fun thing. The nice thing about All Stars is the challenges are not sponsored, so this wasn't like the Red Robin post-apocalyptic thing, or the J.C. Penney's post-apocalyptic design challenge. So it's just, the challenge is what it is. Post-apocalyptic stuff is really kind of popular right now. I feel like zombies and post-apocalyptic. Oh my god, I'm doing it now.
No, you're one of them.
I've said it like 12 times now. Post-apocalyptic things have been big for like the last, like, I don't know, like decade maybe? But they're still popular. Like, there's still movies and stuff coming out about zombies and like the end of the world and everything. So, time for Project Runway to finally get in on that.
If only this was a video, because I feel like our facial expressions are really going to be killer this episode.
Yeah,
at least mine. I can't speak for Riley.
Yeah. Oh, mine are always quite the dream. So, again, we learned that this is a one-day challenge, because of course it is. It's early in the season. And they get $200 budget at Mood, which is probably fine, because they're just going to rip it up. So if they had like a big budget, Mood would probably be like, more fabrics. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge. There was no like guest or anything. It's just Alyssa saying these things, and off they go. So they head to Mood. The designers are running all over the place. I did see Swatch this time,
but he looked dead.
Well, he's sleeping. Swatch, he works hard. And he had a birthday. He's getting up there for a little Boston Terry. He's just tired of the shenanigans. But I didn't see him last week. I'm sure he was in there. I just didn't spot him, but this time I was like really paying attention to the Mood section. Sometimes I like kind of fade out on the Mood, because I watch this stuff at like 5 a.m, guys.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm, sipping my cappuccino made of powder. Were there any Mood moments for you? Like, since this was just an individual challenge, there wasn't any like drama about like picking fabrics. No one seemed to have a real struggle. Some people were like, I want pink, I want black, but I don't remember a whole lot of.
No, Kelly, when they were sketching, seemed very confident that the fabrics would speak to her.
Which is always the worst thing on this show. Spoiler alert, but it seems like whenever people start talking about their kids, or like a spouse, or they start talking about like, I'm going to go to Mood and the fabrics will speak to me. It's like, bye, Felicia.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and Kelly has some interesting fabric choices usually anyway in combination, so maybe she is truly inspired by what she finds at Mood. Hard to say. Any other Mood moments for you?
No.
Hashtag Mood moments.
So.
Okay, so then let's move on to the workroom. And again, All Stars is just a shorter episode length than Project Runway normal season is. I think that one's like an hour and a half on TV, like when you have commercials and everything, and All Stars is only an hour. So without commercials, it's like 40 minutes. So Mood's like a minute, whereas on the normal show, it's like 5 minutes. The workroom time is shorter. The time with the critiques is shorter. And then we still get a pretty long runway because we have so many designers. We still have 15 designers, but it's just like the episodes, oh my gosh. And yet our podcast's still hours long.
Yep.
So a couple designers were struggling in the workroom this time. They had like a distressing room off to the side where they did like the blowtorching and the spray paint. But eventually it seemed as the day went on, people just brought those tools out to their workstation. So it's like everybody had a blowtorch. Everybody had like this like grater brush, and everybody had like paint and fake blood and wax just at their stations, just burning, melting fabric. It's like, is that synthetic fibers? Are you like releasing toxic fumes? hey, I got a day to make this dress. I'll breathe it in, A couple people struggled, mostly Anthony. He really struggled because he is used to styling and like dressing, so he was having to struggle with just the kind of idea of ripping up fabric. He's like, I really like the hand of fabric and all this other stuff, and he's just like, distressing it feels wrong. Kelly also was struggling a little bit with time, as was Ari. She was struggling a little bit with time, but I think it was, at least the edit anyway, was that it was mostly Anthony just being like, this is not my personality, and then using two different techniques to distress, then the techniques have to work together. You can't just burn something over here and then spray paint over here and be like, well, that don't make sense. Mm-hmm. Then, do you have anything else about the workroom before the critiques?
I don't think so.
There was a tragic moment where Helen, on the day where they distressed things, not that she knew that was going to happen, she was using bleach, and I have a quote later, but she was wearing her favorite pants, and the bleach got on the pants. I don't know how catastrophic this was. Will it add to the fashion of the pants? It didn't seem to be so in, Helen's mind, but maybe she can add a little more, and make it look like it's on purpose. And, she didn't know that this was going to be the challenge, but I would probably say maybe don't bring your favorite, like, anything to this show, because at the very least, you're going to be running around and, like, up working for, like, 13 hours a day. So you might get a little sweaty, you might get a little wrinkly.
Yeah.
Stretched out. There's a risk of tearing, I would think, with all the up and down they do. So,
Definitely.
But R.I.P. in peace, Helen's pants. Any other moments?
No.
Okay. So then Anne comes in. I'm still getting used to Anne.
Yeah.
I'm still filling out the Anne critique. As you guys know, we love Tim on this podcast. Tim Gunn, a true angel.
I mean, that sounded funny, but it's so true.
I want him to...
There's no truer statement, honestly.
I want him to mentor me through my life. My life. I do like Anne better than Zana, because even though I find some of Anne's critique to be more criticism or to be a little harsher, like she's on the judging panel and not their mentor, at least she's giving them feedback. Sometimes Zana just would be like, looks okay, and it's like, I need Zana. So I'll give that to Anne, that at least she gives a little more, and she seemed to be having a little more fun with it this week. A couple of the designers, I think at least Joshua and Helen, maybe some others too, like, let her distress, like, bits of their, like, fake fabric and stuff, and she, like, I think it was Helen again, she caught fire.
Yes.
She gave Anne, like, a soldering iron, and, like, let her touch on a scrap piece of fabric, not the actual Farno garment, and, like, Anne was like, ooh, is it hot? Like, yeah, it's a soldering iron. And then she touches it to it and, like, starts a fire, and Helen's like, ooh! So we've got a little more personality from Anne. And then at the very end, as she's about to leave the room, she turns around and, is just kind of like speaking to all of them. And she's like, and if I feel like it, and I like the winning look may go into Marie Claire magazine. Which I didn't see later in the episode that they didn't, like, pop back in and say that it would. That I saw.
What? Say that again?
She said that the winning look could go into Marie Claire magazine. But I didn't see anything.
This episode?
Yes.
I don't remember this.
Well, it definitely happened because I wrote it down.
I believe you. I'm just saying, like, that didn't make it into this brain.
Well, and I wonder if that's just, like, throughout the rest of the season. Does that mean if there's something she really likes or that she thinks is truly fashion forward, that it'll be, like, a bonus win, that someone gets to be, like, at least a picture? She didn't say, like, a spread, I don't think. She just said that it could go in Marie Claire. I didn't see anything else the rest of this episode, like, at the end, where they were like, yep, and the winning look gets to go. They didn't say anything like that, and, like, they didn't... the one thing of not having the sponsorships from the normal season is that in All-Stars, usually the prizes are just you win.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's immunity, or at least they haven't mentioned it yet. There's no save, there's no Tim Gunn save, there's no Anne Fullenwider save, and then there's rarely, like, a big prize. Like, you just...
Well, yeah, they're All-Stars. They've already had their chance.
Yeah, you're not gonna get to design, a cup. Okay, you're not gonna
no
get your
Dixie cups for you.
Yeah, no Dixie cups for you. You're not gonna get, but also some of the other prizes were like a trip somewhere because you were designing for like a hotel or something. So that's just, maybe later in the season we might have a couple of those, but it's the same thing. Like, there's not like the Lexus challenge where you win a Lexus or something. So But she did mention that, so I just wonder if throughout the season, if we'll see at least, like, maybe one time that Anne comes back at the end and is like, I love it! Put it in my magazine! Which is a nice benefit, and also, you're getting to rub elbows with Anne Fullenwider of Marie Claire, which isn't, like the top of the top in terms of magazines, but it's known, and it's known for fashion and everything, so that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to mention, when they were doing the hair and makeup guy is back. Mustachioed makeup guy is back.
My favorite.
Yeah, so last season we were talking about him a little bit, and I didn't write down his name, but we were like, where's makeup guy? And I think he's just All Stars. So he's in, like, the Rodial, like, beauty studio, and he just has such a, like, warm personality. I like the hair people and the makeup people usually. A few of them are annoying. The Sally Beauty guy was annoying. Like, Sally Beauty will always make you beautiful, like, every episode. But this guy's he's very nice. Obviously, they have to shill the name and everything, but it was just like, Sally Beauty will always make you beautiful. Will always make you beautiful. And it's like, will you? Do you have any other critique or any other comments from the critiques or, like, anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. I mean, the show blasts through it, and this isn't, like, the first time we're meeting these designers. The workroom, other than, like, I'm sure it was loud. I'm sure there was a lot of weird smells. And, you know, a lot of people were kind of, like, worried about distressing things and, like, ruining it. It wasn't actually that interesting of a workroom, despite blowtorches and fake blood being involved. I also feel like this episode we heard less from, like, Ken and, like, Candace, and even less from Kelly. We heard a lot from Anthony. And it's like, we still haven't really heard much from Melissa or, like, Kimberly. Like, they get, like, one line, and then it's like, moving on. Mm-hmm. I thought we'd hear a lot more from Joshua this season, because he seems kind of, but this was Anthony's episode, let me put it that way, and I've got plenty of Anthony quotes. So, next up, let's just get to the runway, shall we? Alright, so our guest judge this week was Danielle Brooks, who's an actress. She's on Orange is the New Black, and she's also been on Sounded Like Broadway and stuff, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Orange is the New Black, have you?
I have, but that was years ago, like when first season came out on Netflix, but I'm not familiar. I wasn't familiar with, like, who she was, though.
Yeah, she had slightly better things to say than some people do, but I'm still, especially with All Stars, I would just like to have guest judges who aren't actresses. She's a fine actress, I'm sure. She had decent things to say, but I'm like, I know a lot of people feel certain ways about Michael Costello from last week, previous Project Runway designer who's had quite a bit of success. I'd rather see more of that. Like, bring on Christian Siriano, or bring on Dimitri, or bring on some of these other folks, or Mondo, who've been successful, you know, but also have been on Project Runway. Or just bring on, Isaac Mizrahi. Like, bring a couple of your lunch buddies over. Like, come on.
Yeah, we need, like, people who are more specific to fashion.
Yeah, especially for All Stars, instead of, like, random actress number 4. And they're all fine. Some of them last season, though, for the regular season, they were not fine. I like shorts. I like that it's blue. Okay, next. Not to say any of that about Danielle. She was fine. But it's just, when it's another, you know, to me, random actress, I'm just like, okay. Because, like, they didn't even pick a TV show that's post-apocalyptic. They just picked, like, a girl in a prison show that was probably coming back into syndication right now. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, or back into, like, airing right now. So it's like, you could have at least picked somebody from, like, The Walking Dead or something. But whatever. So first up down the runway, we had Candace. And I wrote down what they used.
Oh, okay.
So Candace used the torch, like the blowtorch, fake blood, and they did emphasize that it was fake blood. They didn't, like, do it this way. And then a grater. So I'm not sure if that means, like, a cheese grater or some other type of grater. I don't know. A lot of people were using, like, this rough, like, brush, but then no one had it listed on the show that they were using that brush. So is that a grater? I don't know. Anyway, first up was Candace, and she put down, I believe it's separates. So it's these, like, black and white, or maybe it's pale pink. It's hard to tell.
I think it's black and white.
Black and white pinstripe pants, slightly oversized, slightly high-waisted, and then the top is, like, kind of a kimono/robe style little jacket. Also black and white. It's trimmed in black and then white. It looks kind of satiny. And then there's just an enormous amount of tulle, like black and cream colored tulle that kind of comes around at the waist in the back. Just a lot of it, and that she distressed and burnt. What did we think of Candace's?
Well, I just want to throw out a tiny disclaimer that this was not my favorite episode. And there was not one look that I loved. So I'm just going to put that right up there.
Are these all going to be not your favorite?
Yes. Every single one. But with that said, I would say I thought this one was one of the better ones. I liked, I don't know, I like that she kept the color palette simple. But she, like, mixed it up because, you know, she had the stripes and then she had more of, like, I don't know how to describe what I'm saying, but, you know. Oh my god, I'm basically an actress judge. A horrible, dumb, random actress number 5, except I'm worse. I'm just average human number 5.
Well, then move along.
I don't know. I mean, I like Candace's vibe, but I just, god dang, post-apocalyptic, not my vibe. What do you think? Just go on.
The materiality here is a little weird to me. I like the tulle, but like tulle already kind of, especially when it's haphazard like this, already looks like it's been destroyed, because that's just kind of the nature of tulle with the volume and a few ragged edges here or there. I don't feel that too many of the designers really grasp the post-apocalyptic design aesthetic. Like, a lot of people just, like, kind of burnt the edges and ripped some stuff up. But I'm like, it's not, like, singed design or even just distressed design. It's supposed to look like this person went, like, a bomb blew up and they're, like, walking around trying to survive to get to this runway show, right? With some great story. So we didn't even, I don't even think we heard Candace's story.
No.
I think this is fine. It's Candace's color story. The tulle is okay. I don't love it, though. It looks like a mess. And not necessarily planned. That's it. Next up, we had Char. And she used charcoal and, again, a grater. And Char was really inspired by the fire aspect, which is surprising because she didn't use any fire. But she did use charcoal. So, yeah. I'll give it to her. So, she ended up putting down separates as well. So, she put down these slightly high-waisted trousers that had a train. That's right, trousers with a train, which I think your reaction to that tells you what kind of person you are. 50% of the people in the world right now just were in Isaac Mizrahi. That sounds amazing. And the other 50% of the people were apparently me and Maggie, based off the face she just gave me. What the heck? So you internalize that as you will. So these are basically, like, they kind of look like they would be bell bottoms, but they're open from, like, the knee down, so they become, like, this long train thing, but they're a bell bottom shape, just cut open. And then the top is, like, this little jacket that's kind of sewn together, and then parts to show a peekaboo of just above her belly button. And it's, like, cut up on one arm all the way up to, like, the bicep, and then the other arm goes down and actually wraps around her hand, her right hand. There's some, like, yellow reflective tape around the front in certain areas to make it look like a firefighter jumpsuit. And then on the back, she cut out of red fabric DET, which stands for Detroit Fire DEPT. So Detroit Fire Department. She literally stenciled and cut out and sewed onto the back of her garment. I should have said Candace was safe, by the way. Char was chosen for critique. Oh, I'm sorry. What did you think? Sorry. Oh, wow. I skipped all through that.
It does not matter. 'Cause you already know my thoughts. I thought this was just god-awful. Like, it just... I mean, your comments on the pants. Like, what the heck? What are these? And then I hate that she added the stupid letters on the back. Like, she said herself, like, she was worried if it was going to come off costumey.
And Anne told her it would.
Yeah, and guess what? It did! It did!
She still did it.
It's so terrible. No.
Well, if we recall Char from her season, like, every other episode, she either made something that was good, sometimes it seemed by mistake, and sometimes at the grace of other people or Tim's advice, and then half the time she made just terrible things, but somehow made it through. I think that was a lot of the issue between the drama between her and Karina, was that Karina, like, was like, well, all my stuff was good until this one piece they randomly didn't like, whereas Char's been up and down, but she made it to be in the top. So, whether you agree or disagree with Karina's opinion, it does seem true now again that Char, even a couple years later now, last week she was in the top for a look that was, critiqued by Anne. Obviously, everybody takes advice, but so it's like, and then this time it's such a whoa that it's like, should have kept taking Anne's advice.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time for pants with a train is not in the post-apocalypse. I think if she had saved that for like an avant-garde challenge, you still would have had that nice shocking moment for Isaac Mizrahi. You still would have had something cool and unique, because I can honestly say I've never seen that before. But maybe not in the scenario where you're like literally walking through a deserted wasteland. Because it's just gonna like get caught up on stuff. I don't know. And it doesn't look like they like ripped, because those would be some wacky bell bottoms for a fire off. Like,
well, to me, this looks like a business suit too, like a torn up business suit.
Yeah.
And why would a firefighter be wearing a business suit?
Well, she said that she's a fashionable firefighter.
No. I don't accept this one.
Let's keep moving. It's a long runway, and yeah, I wasn't super impressed.
Oh my God.
She was chosen for critique in the bottom. Although, just like last episode, they kind of said good and negative things to everybody they chose for critique. Like, when they, like, pulled them all out and talked to all 6 that they, like, picked out, they said good and bad. So at first I was like, is she in the top or is she in the bottom? I can't tell.
She was one I really couldn't tell.
Yeah, there were 2 that I had no idea until they brought out the bottom 3, and there she was. And I was like, okay. So she was chosen for critique in the bottom. Next up, we had Helen, who used bleach, the blowtorch, and a knife.
I like the emphasis you put on that. And a knife.
I think it said utility knife, but, like, I'm just taking, like, shorthand notes here. And a knife!
Wow, one of the worst episodes of this show ever, but one of our best episodes ever.
Well, let's see. So she put down, it's kind of like this, like, mustard yellow or, like, cigarette-stained curtain yellow, like, sheath kind of dress all the way down to the floor. It's got some type of, like, swirly pattern that it's a really low-res picture I'm looking at, and I can't remember from watching it this morning if that's, like, a fabric that she used. I believe it is, and then she distressed it a little bit, obviously, with, like, the bleach, or if it's all bleach, or if it's, like, a pattern fabric. Either way, it's this bodycon kind of dress all the way to the floor, and then it's got, like, a cape over one shoulder that goes all the way to the floor as well, and then it's, like, swirled with, like, bleachy pattern. What do we think?
This one was okay. Like, this one read definitely more to me like post-apocalyptic. Like, I could get it. But, I don't know. I didn't really like the hair. Like, the hair made it very, like, futuristic and kind of gave it, like, a video game-ish vibe.
Yeah, she's got, like grayish white hair, like Storm from X-Men.
Like, I don't hate it, I guess, but I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird touch. But, I don't know. This one was okay. What'd you think?
I just don't understand. This is the first gown we'll see.
Yeah.
There are so many gowns, and I just don't get post-apocalypse gown. To me, those do not go together. Or you'd have to do it just right, and one person does it just right, I think, later on, that we'll see. No one else who made a gown. No, they didn't. The color story of this does feel kind of like, grungy, and I can kind of see it from that. But the fact that she made a gown with this huge oversized cape that drags on the floor. No. Next. She was safe. Next up we had Ken, who we heard like one thing from this episode. I thought he was going to be our voice of our season. Because I love Ken, but we heard like one thing from him. I guess he didn't have a lot to say. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he had too much to say and they cut it all out. I don't know. He used bleach, a blowtorch, and blood. He ended up putting down, it's like kind of this cream or white colored floor length bodycon dress with a cutout right above the chest. It's high necked, and then I believe it's a separate, like, kind of almost like a lightweight robe over top, like little jacket, but it goes all the way to the floor. And then he scattered blood at the bottom of this white dress, and then it looked like he used the bleach to kind of turn some of the fabric like yellow, and then it's a real long like jacket that she kind of held out. What did we think of Ken's?
This one, not my favorite. Really didn't like the blood at the bottom, and that was like his favorite. He was just like, oh my god, I love that effect at the bottom. And I'm like, no, I don't agree, but to each his own, I guess. I don't know. Not my favorite. What do you think? Oh, no.
I don't want to say this as a derogatory thing because I'm also a woman and there's nothing wrong with what it is. But the idea of a long, white, skinny thing with blood red at the tip just makes me think of a tampon.
Yep.
And it's not a bad thing. Use them. Periods are not bad. I don't like the vilification of a natural cycle of women's bodies. So I don't want to say that it looks like a tampon and that makes it bad. It looks like a bad tampon and that makes it bad. I hope I said that correctly. It looks dirty and it does look, like it's grungy. It looks like it could be in a kind of, dystopian thing, but I wish the blood was either scattered kind of all over her, like she just killed some great huge mutated monster and she's like, yeah, I'm a fucking badass, because Ken always likes these warrior women, but instead it looks like she's been walking so long her feet are bleeding, but that wasn't his story. No. It just, to me, tampon, he was safe. Next up is Kimberly, who I missed her original season. I feel like I've heard 2 things from her. I have no idea who she is. That's just a personal thing. We didn't get her story either. She used bleach, fire. Now, it didn't say blowtorch, it just said fire. I saw some people using lighters, so maybe that's what that meant. But just fire makes it sound like she just opened the closet and was like, here's my fire, and then I'll get some water, and then a sander, which to me is like a big belt sander. Yeah. But I didn't see anybody using that, because that could be kind of interesting. Anyway, she put down basically a take on a little black dress. So at the top, where you would normally have a halter neck made of black fabric, she used rope, literally tied around her model's neck, crisscrossed over the chest, and then is looped around or over top of her breasts, and then that is sewn into a little black dress that goes to just mid-calf. It's got a slit up the front and the back, and then on one side of the dress, the right side, there's just this mass of black textured fabric that's kind of cut up and ripped. And then she paired this, and I'm just saying this because it's just terrible. She paired this with these platform leopard print heels, because nothing says post-apocalypse like platform leopard print heels. Maybe it's cheetah print. Hard to say when it's this small, but
I don't know.
What did we think of Kimberly's?
Oh. Well, I'll say I recently watched the season that Kimberly was on, and I liked her stuff a lot, but so far this season, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This is, to me, definitely better than what she did last week, but I don't know.
This is a bottom look to me, personally. She was safe.
Yeah.
The rope around the neck is a little troubling to me. I get if you were trying to, push it in avant-garde of, hanging yourself. You're trying to do, something about, suicide or something like that. Trying to make, some artsy political statement. But just as a design element, it's I'm just trying to think of, surviving in, some weird landscape. You're just going to wrap rope around your neck. I get you might need rope to, rappel down a building. Or, climb a mountain. Get a bucket of water down a well. But, I'll just store it the only place I know how. Just wrap it around my neck! I don't know. And then the dress itself has this odd dichotomy of, one side of it's, this slinky little black dress, and then the other side is, the tail of a peacock only in black. It just droops there. She was safe. Next up we had Kelly, who used a grater and a knife. Like we said, Kelly kind of was struggling with this in terms of time because of the fabric she chose. This will take me a moment to break this down. I will say she made her own accessories, so she made these little earmuffs / headphones. They were supposed to be headphones, which just takes me back to season 1 and Jay McCarroll, who did headphones with his knit looks. So this was a blue, kind of tealy sequined earmuffs within the same furry kind of fabric, fake fur obviously, on the outside, not the inside where it would touch your ears and be warm and soft. No, it said this poor model had to have sequins rubbing on her ears the whole time, but that was on the outside because it's fashion. Yeah. And then it's this black fishnet or mesh top, racer back, and then the front kind of looks like a ugly sweater. It's blue fabric that she cut holes out of and sewed in more of those kind of tealy sequins. And that kind of is in like a V at the front, and then the mesh fills in the V. And then it kind of wraps around the back as well in what almost looks like a sweater bra strap. The bottoms are like high-waisted black granny panties. It's supposed to be like one little bodysuit, I think, but it looks like, I don't know. And then underneath or attached to the granny panties is like these black mesh strips that she cut up. What did we think of Kelly's?
This one, I mean, as I said on my disclaimer, didn't love anybody's. But to me, this one at least, like, you could tell immediately that Kelly did this. Like, it was so Kelly. And I like the little, like, earmuff headphones that she made. Like, the fact that she thought about that was cool to me. But, like, I don't know. What says apocalypse more than blue sequins? Nothing.
For me, nothing. More terrifying. No. I do like to always point out when people make an accessory, so I like that this one's kind of off the wall. It's not just like a bag or like a covering for a shoe, but it's an actual kind of like headpiece. That's kind of neat. To me, this looks like ice skater outfit that got like shredded by someone's skates.
Yeah.
I don't think it looks post-apocalyptic, so I don't really think it fits the challenge. I also can't tell what she distressed other than cutting strips, but you could cut strips on a non-distress challenge. So to me, it doesn't really fit the challenge. I can tell it's Kelly's. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Some of Kelly's stuff is tacky in like a fun way, and some of it's tacky in a tacky way, and for me, this is more tacky. But she was Treasure Fatigue in the bottom. I don't think she deserved to be in the bottom. I didn't like it, but I think there were worse looks, but whatever.
No.
Next
like, I'm sorry, just like one tack on thought to that is just that, like, what I meant by that comment of you could tell that it's Kelly's is just like when we saw other looks throughout this whole runway, to me, they all kind of blurred together for the most part. Like, there were some, like Candace's, I probably would have guessed Candace made hers.
Right.
But a bunch of them, it was just like, I don't know. These just all, whatever.
Blend together. Next up we had Amanda, and she used blood, a razor, and tea bags. So, it started out dark, and then, tea. Her look, again, is kind of hard to describe. Amanda's usually are. So she has this, like, bodysuit, like, jumpsuit kind of thing that looks like a tube sock to me. So I think it ends, like, at mid-calf, and there's a big cutout in the, like, chest area and over the stomach. And then it's gray, pink, and white striped. Like, striped like the top of crew socks. But all the way up. And then it's high-necked. And then over top of that, I think it's like a thing on top. Like a little, like, I keep saying little, but it's a huge jacket. If it's sewn on, it's hard to tell where. But I think it's a jacket. It basically looks like a torn-up Afghan. And it's cream-colored, and then it has two blue, like, stripes on the back that's probably holding the different panels of fabric together. And then she distressed this like a Ed Hardy t-shirt. Yeah. Just like those really big gaping cuts that you see like kids do sometimes. What did we think of Amanda's?
And one other detail which I didn't understand was she also incorporated handwriting too.
Oh yeah, it's hard to tell in this picture, but I think she wrote on it as well to distort it. Yes.
I love Amanda, but this is one of the most hideous things I've ever seen in my entire life. That's 27 years worth of hideous things that I've seen. These eyeballs of witness.
And we live in an ugly place.
And this, well, Trump's America is. But, anyways, it was disgusting. I hate it. I hate everything about it. There's not one thing that I like about it. That cutout that goes down the front and the colors just really remind me of something.
It's suggestive.
And I hate it. I, like, not for that reason, but just, I hate the color palette. I hate the treatment of the, like, whatever the jacket thing is. I hate it all. I hate it. I'm gonna stop with the hatred. Well,
I'll continue. Let me pick up that trend. I also hate this. I think at worst it's it's just an unflattering, like, sweater jumpsuit, which already should make you go, oh my god. And then over top
sorry to interrupt. Jumpsuit!
We're gonna have to figure out our bruh from this season. It might be post-apocalyptic gown! So at least this was, you know, it's got leg holes, but...
Yeah.
To me, the, like, shawl/jacket thing seems like someone's Afghan or curtain. They, like, got ripped up. I don't see post-apocalyptic of this at all, necessarily. I think if the shawl thing was in, like, a darker color, maybe, and was slightly less distressed, it might look like a good, like, cover-up for, like, warmth, or even to be, like camouflage or something. But the weird jumpsuit underneath, and yeah, that cutout, and then the fact that it ends at mid-calf is just so unflattering. And I think it has a cutaway back as well. It's so weird. She was safe. Next up, we had Ari, who used bleach and a torch, and she also dyes a lot, like her fabric.
Mm-hmm.
So she got like some different color red dyes and stuff like that. She dyed her fabric last episode as well. And she made this little red dress, that she kind of, the way she dyed it was like the middle is the lightest color, and then she kind of dyed the top and the bottom. It's a strapped little top with a little bodice, and then it's just kind of a flowy kind of A-line dress to the floor, and then she kind of cut it and blowtorched it in a way to be slightly high-low, like a little bit of like a, not a fishtail, but I guess just high-low. And then the bottom, she blowtorched to the point where, according to Alyssa Milano, it looked like lace. According to me, it looks like there's a bunch of holes in it. And then she also made this black jacket. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of the jacket on. But it was this, like, black or very dark gray jacket that she also distressed. Just the bottom. The top was super structured with, I think, a slightly oversized lapel. And then it fell away and was distressed. And you couldn't see the dress except for just that red at the bottom. Mm-hmm. What did we think of Ari's?
This one, I don't know. It was just alright. I wouldn't have put this in the bottom. Like, to me, this was a safe look. That's all I got. It was fine.
She was in the top. She was in the bottom.
Yeah. I wasn't. I would just say, like...
Oh, it's just safe, is what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I got way more confused over that than I should have.
I think this is, the first time I'm seeing Ari is this season. I didn't see her season. And again, she's made a look that's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It fits the model well, and is obviously the techniques and stuff she used were well done, but it's not quite enough. Like, I liked it a lot more with the coat still on. The jacket on, the way the red kind of flashed. Her story was about, like, the tectonic plates shifted, and that was represented in the black jacket, and then, like, the volcanoes erupted, which was the red. Mm-hmm. So I really liked the story with the jacket still on, but then when she removes the jacket, it's just like a ripped up red dress. So I wish she would have either kept the jacket and just made the bottom of the jacket that red, or maybe, like, the inside lining and just have the model be, like, in this black ripped up thing, and at the end be like, psh, and have, like, this moment of, like, red. It's fine. I think it's okay. I think the techniques she used, she did it well. I think she maybe overdid it slightly with the blowtorch, but I think her dyeing job is probably one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
She used Frozen Vertique in the top. Next up, we had Joshua, who used a material that I didn't even know was an option. But he used paintballs, like a paintball gun, and a soldering iron. So no one else used the paintballs, spoiler for the next, like, half of the designers. But there also had, like, they had paintball guns, they had targets, they had, like, a whole little range where he could shoot paintball guns. And, no, like, they didn't even mention it. And then just randomly he's, like, with Ann Fullerwider being like, yeah, they've got paintball. Blank, blank, blank. Like, what?
Yep.
So he ended up putting down this little high-necked, little kind of slinky dress that goes to very upper thigh.
Mm-hmm.
On top of, it's white, and it's got a big target painted on it, or like glued on it, and then he shot that with blue paintballs. He did an okay job. No bullseye, but he did an okay job. And then over top of this is this clear kind of like plexi jacket that's sleeveless. It has a lot of like strap detailing in the front and across the back, and then it looks like it has some type of little like poncho in a bag, or like little backpack strapped to the back of the jacket. The jacket has really oversized pockets, and is kind of like a trench coat, basically without sleeves and clear. And then he must have taken the soldering iron to that because he added a lot of little details to the plastic, like melted little areas, and then he put wax on it as well. Mm-hmm. What do we think of Joshua?
This one was one that I thought was more successful. Like, I liked it. The target was kind of literal, since he literally used it as a target. Mm. But I did like that it made it more graphic. I don't know. I just kind of like that about it. And the, whatever you want to call it, the, like, clear material that he used for, like, the jacket part. Like, I don't know. This really isn't my vibe at all. Like, this challenge. I'm struggling hard. Yeah. But that gave more of, like, a utilitarian vibe to me. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of like that. I thought that kind of was an interesting take on the challenge. So, this one was alright. I probably would have put this in my personal, like, tops, but he was safe, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. What'd you think?
I liked this as well. At first I was like, bullseye, and you shot at it. Post-apocalypse. Shoot me. Right here. Right in the center. Like, really? But I actually kind of like it as, like you said, like, I think it adds a cool graphic element, and it makes it feel like it has this design element that the rest didn't really have. And then choosing to use, I don't know if he got a choice of paintball color, or was it only blue? But I like that he used blue and not like red or yellow or something. Like the blue kind of, again, is a fresh color that no one else really used a ton of, and it's a real bright blue. I love the jacket. Normally, I don't really like clear plasticky things, but it reads future-y to me. Like, I feel like when clear plastic fashion kind of started coming out, I think in like the 60s, it was always using like futuristic things. And even though it's 2018 now, and we are actually in the future, and now we know that the future is actually like denim and like weird legging patterns of like the galaxy, because we're still wearing like stuff that's been around for, there's not a lot of new stuff. But so the jacket just seems cool, and yeah, I get like a military kind of vibe, which I think in a post-apocalypse you might have. You know, you're gonna have to like weapon up and like gear up, and I like it, and I like that it's sleeveless. I think that just adds this cool vibe, and the model's hair is like up and like back, so it looks like she's like accessorized with like these little black booties. It looks like she's just like gonna kick a door down and like steal all your food.
Yeah, his styling was good.
Yeah, so I think it would still look just as good without the bullseye, or if he kind of like hand drew it a little bit and made it look like she spray painted it herself, like this is my nickname. But I think it was successful, but he was just safe. Mm-hmm. Next up we have Merlene, and she used a blowtorch, blood, and a grater. And she had a pretty lofty idea of like half of the dress would be this 3D kind of shape based off her sketch, and the other half would just be a normal black dress. She ended up kind of doing the 3D thing all over, and then made it look deconstructed. So I also want to mention that she made a little accessory that it was like a golden rectangle. But it was supposed to look like glasses or like a futuristic visor, but it ended up just being like a gold little rectangle that had like a thing to go over the model's ears. Anyway, her dress was a little black dress with these kind of weird triangle shapes on top of it. It had interesting little cutouts in certain areas. It was sleeveless. It had a cutaway back. Again, with those kind of different shapes coming up over it. It ended just below the knee with a pretty big cutout in the front. And then she kind of melted it and stuff in various places. And I think she used some different kind of materials to get that melted look to look like she did like she sculpted it that way. She didn't melt it that way. She put it on purpose. What do we think of Merlene's?
This one was alright. I mean, I like Merlene's ideas. And like you said last week, I do like her more like architectural style too. I don't know if that was the right word, but you know what I'm trying to get at, right?
Mm-hmm. She's a lot about lines and structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that. And her story too was pretty good. Like, didn't she say it was like, I don't know, like sort of like alien was part of her, or like some other...
Initially her design was that they were a half human, half an alien we haven't discovered yet. But then when she was on the runway, she said that it was actually an alien on a planet being invaded by humans. And this was like her like appearance.
Yeah. Which, like, I could get that from this. So, I don't know. Hers was good. I like how you described the accessory, because, yeah, I don't know how
it's
else
supposed
you'd
to look
really
like a futuristic like visor or like a targeting system, but it just looked like a little gold rectangle. It's not even glasses, it's literally a rectangle.
A for effort.
Well,
not from Riley.
This is a pass-fail class, okay? Project Runway's pass-fail. Barely pass, no. She was starting critiquing the top again, so this is Marlene in the top twice in a row. Yeah. And coming from her season, I know she kind of flip-flopped a few times. Next up, we had Fabio, who we heard nothing from this entire episode, I don't think. No. And very little from last episode. So he used a bleach, a blowtorch, and a heat gun. And Fabio put down, it looks like zebra print, but I think it's just black and white, like patterned stripes. And it looks like it's like a dress over top of like leggings, is how I'm interpreting it from this picture. So there are like little black leggings to the ankle, and then over top of that is this black and white striped kind of tight dress, and then at the top, these are so hard to describe. The post-apocalypse is going to be tough for this podcast, I'll tell you that right now. Mm-hmm. You know, not the radiation or mutants or like warfare. It's going to be trying to describe what people are wearing, if this is any indication now. The top is like this oversized kind of like collared shirt top that's black and white kind of floofiness. It's belted at like her true waist, not like her waist. And then from that waist downwards is like a bunch of strips, or not strips, but like big swaths of this black and white fabric. What did we think? Free me from this torment.
This one, I didn't get it at all. I wrote down zebra with black pants, and...
Accurate. Need we say more? I think that's all we need to say. Oh, and I should mention he paired this with a black visor. That's right, not a hat, a visor that her big bouffant like hairstyle poked out of.
Yeah, I have nothing to say.
She looks like she's about to go play tennis in the safari.
Yeah.
But she already got attacked by like a lion. He was safe. Next up we had Edmund, who we also heard very little from this episode, but I will say his style changed this episode, because at first I didn't recognize him. Yeah. He had like a ring in his beard. And he wasn't wearing his traditional black baseball cap with like the safety pin in it. Mm-hmm. He was wearing something else, and then he had like a pin in his beard, or like an earring in his beard, and I'm like, who is that? What? Who is this? Is that Fabio? Like, who's Fabio? And I'm like, no, that's Edmund. Like, what? Edmund put down, of course, a little black dress, as is the Edmund way. He used a blowtorch, a shredder, and spray paint. Mm-hmm. And his little black dress is very, very short. And on the top half, it kind of goes up at an angle to the right. So it kind of goes up over the shoulder on the right, and then it's sleeveless, and nothing on the shoulder on the left. And then on the bottom, it kind of comes together at her waist, and then goes out again slightly wider to the right, and then is closer to the left. It's kind of, he ruched the fabric quite a bit, and then it looks like she's wearing like blue striped shorts or something underneath it, or that's just fabric poking through. It's hard to say. And then he styled his model with all of her hair to the right in what looks like something from like the Rugrats or something, where her hair is just like in a Isosceles triangle. What did we think of Edmund's?
This one, I mean, completely impractical for post-apocalyptic. I don't know.
No, this is Edmund designs club dresses for girls going to the club. In the post-apocalypse, we're obviously still going to have girls going to the club.
Okay, well, if that's true, then fine. This is acceptable. Much better than what he made last week, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a safe look for me. It's whatever.
I should have mentioned that the back, it just has like one black strap. Otherwise, it's completely backless. Yeah. So, certainly not in a wintry setting.
No.
Including a nuclear winter, I can't imagine. But he was safe. Next up, we had Stanley, who also struggled with this challenge a little bit. I also missed Stanley's season, and he came from a season that was only teams. Like, you never competed alone. And since the first episode of this season, they also were on teams. He was like, this is my first individual challenge for Project Runway. And I was just like, that's so weird that you're coming to All Stars and you've never competed just by yourself. It seems so weird to me, but I missed that team season. Mm-hmm. He ended up putting down this like olive green tiered ball gown, and he used blowtorch, charcoal, and spray paint. And yeah, it's just this little, like, the top kind of has, like, this mesh overlay, and it's got, like, little tiny, like, sleeves that are, like, cap sleeves, and then 3-tiered, but it ends at, like, her ankle. It doesn't actually touch the floor. What did we think of Stanley's?
This one, another one, like, this one is a true gown.
Yes, this is like a ball gown. If it was yellow, it would almost look like Belle's dress, only ugly. This could be a mildewed version of Belle's dress, I guess, from Beauty and the Beast.
That would have made a pretty decent story. Belle in the apocalypse.
Unfortunately, I didn't mention everyone's story because we didn't hear them all. Stanley's story was just that this lady, she was at the Met Gala, and a fire broke out, so she had to get through the fire.
Yeah.
There were several of the people's things were about fire. Like Kelly's look was like an ice queen, and then she started dancing in the desert and lit the world on fire. Like, a lot of people were like, I want to use the blowtorch. My story should have fire in it. But anyway, go ahead.
I think so, yeah. I don't know, yeah. This one just kind of bizarre for the challenge. Like, you could make any type of garment you wanted, and you went for, like, a ball gown.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of people took the post-apocalyptic instead of, like, after. Like, you're emerging from, like, a fallout shelter, or, like, you know, hiding in a refrigerator a la Indiana Jones, and said, like, this is, like, the moment it happens. So, like, you're in the prom while Carrie White is telekinetically ruining your day after pig blood was spilled on her. Like, it's like, this is the terrifying moment of fire at Met Gala. So it just, I guess I would have taken it a different way. And I will say this before I forget, I would have loved to see what Samantha from last season would have made for this challenge. Because she kind of had this, like, interest, like, seemed kind of like a geeky, nerdy person, and she made a lot of Lolita fashion, but she also sometimes made these kind of, like, sci-fi, like, inspired things, so I just think she would have had fun with this challenge, I'll just say that. Mm-hmm. All I'm going to say about Stanley's is it looks like a mildewed gown. Yeah. But he didn't mean for it to look like that. I think the color here was wrong, and I don't like 2 episodes in a row where the idea of, like, an olive green ball gown is not the issue. The issue is, like, details on the gown. No, the issue is an olive green gown. There are so many beautiful shades of green. And there's even more olivey than this. Ugh.
And I think some of the judges were like, oh my god, I love this color. Again.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, he was chosen for critique in the bottom, but, like, a lot, like, all the bottoms and the tops had, like, the same thing said to them. Like, 2 of the judges had positive things to say, 2 of the judges had terrible things to say.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we had Melissa. She used a torch, a sander, and spray paint, and she put down separate, so she put down these, like, kind of metallic-y, light gray, like, leggings or jeans, that cut just above the ankle. Over top of that, or on top, she had this asymmetrical little, like, white kind of t-shirt material looking top, that was one shoulder, and then again had that, like, asymmetrical kind of cut across the bottom, and then over top of this, using some type of, like, again, dark gray metallic-y kind of material, almost looks like a trash bag material, it's hard to tell. She made, like, a jacket, sleeveless jacket over top that kind of had, like a tiered layer at the top, belted with some white, looks like bandages, even though this wasn't, like, a not unconventional challenge. It looks like bandages or something, and then the trench coat kind of, or the jacket kind of falls open behind her in, like, this kind of very interesting, like, rounded shape, instead of, like, kind of this, like, I don't know. I'm just gesturing randomly with my hands for an audio item, but whatever. It's rounded. What did we think of Melissa's?
This one, it was okay. I don't like the jacket, but I feel like that would be more believable. Like, if the story, were, like, someone who was living in, right, like,
after the event happened, like, life goes on. Yeah,
like, that could, I don't know. I could see that happening. A girl just, like, fashions that for herself. But I don't know. Maybe that's not good, though. Because then I'm suggesting that. But I don't know. I mean, those pants, they look like denim. Are they not?
I can't tell. I don't know.
We're going to go with gray denim. And for that, I'm going to give this a star.
Okay.
But I would not say this was my favorite of.
For those just tuning in, Maggie loves denim.
Yeah. I was disappointed that there was hardly any distressed denim.
Well, Well, and we don't have a denim designer this time. In the last 2 seasons, we've had like Mahjong or Kini, and this time, nothing. I'll say about Melissa's, I think this was the closest to me of what someone could realistically wear in a post-apocalypse, minus the sleeves. But I feel like you add some like kind of like cool like metal bits and bobs and like a gun in her hand. She looked like something that walked out of a video game of like Fallout or another post-apocalyptic game. So I don't dislike it. Obviously, she has to pair it with like these weird little nude booties, but that's just, you know, Project Runway. That high fashion is unfortunately also high heels, which I think sucks. But I think if this was paired with little booties, it would be way stronger of a statement. Yeah. But she was safe. And last up, we have Anthony, and he used charcoal and a torch, and he also made a gown. And this is at the top, it's either spaghetti strapped or strapless. It's like black and red, and then it kind of has this tulle shoulder on one side, kind of sculptural over the left shoulder. As the dress hits about the waist part, it falls away into this white patterned fabric that is patterned with like black and red flowers. So there's like black outlines of oversized huge flowers, and then a few of them are like look like watercolor painted red. And then he also uses some tulle just in a couple little swath areas, and then he uses several different pieces of that flowery fabric. And then he also made kind of like, I think he called it a turban out of that tulle around her head. What did we think of Anthony's?
His fabric choice was so bizarre for this challenge, I thought. But I don't know. And this was just, I don't know, it was another just bizarre gown look. But I don't know. It was alright. It had pretty good like runway appeal. When his came around the corner, maybe it could have just been the editing, but they made sure to show everyone being like, "Oh my gosh!" Yeah, there was
I gasped like just watching it. Like all the rest of these, I felt like I was watching Brandon Keyes like runway show again, where it's just like these weird oversized like brown and tan thing, and then this pop of color comes out, and it's just like, "Thank you." And it was the last one, so like 14 other garments, and then this one, and it's like I don't even remember the rest.
Mm-hmm. And it looked really good against the model skin tone too. Like that color, and then she's got this rich brown skin, and I don't know, it looked cool.
Yep.
It looked cool.
And his story was that she was like a African queen who was attending an event, and when, you know, stuff started to hit the fan, she just was like, like, I'm gonna still be who I am. So a lot of the folks, like a lot of the designers went with like at the time of the event, so I'll give it to him for that. I think of all the gowns, this one actually looks like a successful gown. I could see it before it was deconstructed and distressed being a pretty gown, maybe not for, you know, like a red carpet event, but, you know, or like, I guess not for like the Oscars, but maybe for, you know, a different type of event. Mm-hmm. And then for the post-apocalypse, by adding some black tulle again, tulle just always is easy to make look messy, I should say. And then the way he like used the charcoal and torch to kind of like add these black cinch areas, it does look like she just like walked regally out of like a slightly smoldering building. I won't say it erupted in flames, but it looked like it was slightly smoldering. But she looks, you know, still great. He's chosen for Teak in the top.
Yep.
All right, so that leaves us with Char, Kelly, and Stanley in the bottom, and Ari, Merlene, and Anthony in the top. So we'll do the top first, like always. So right off the bat, they say, I think they said, Ari, you're safe. Mm-hmm. And then it was between Merlene and Anthony. And it turns out Anthony was the winner. Did you agree with that?
Sure. That's fine with me. It was good.
I think it had the most runway impact while still looking distressed enough that the judges could tell it was distressed. I don't think it was the strongest post-apocalyptic item. I think that would probably, in terms of that vibe, I think that would either be like Helen, Joshua, or maybe Melissa. But I think Anthony's just in terms of like impact.
Yeah, I agree. I guess like I watched this last night, and my emotions were high last night. And so I still don't completely agree with their top. I think I would have definitely had Josh in the top. Mm-hmm. Probably instead of Ari. I think I would have liked Anthony, Merlene, and Josh. But still, though, even if that were the three, I think I agree with Anthony.
Yep. I think I agree as well. So then the bottom again was Char, Kelly, and Stanley. They say, Char, you're safe. So it was between Kelly and Stanley. Obvious, clear choice here of who should go home. They did the exact opposite, and they ended up sending Kelly home.
Completely unforgivable.
While I didn't like either of their looks, Stanley's to me seemed less inspired and was just an olive gown that he kind of like scribbled charcoal on. At least Kelly's had a little, well, now granted it's her aesthetic and not everybody likes it and, you know, whatever. But at least hers had more personality to it. I don't think either one of them felt post-apocalyptic, so I understand with them, you know, kind of being in the bottom, or at least slightly more critiqued than some of the others. I heavily disagree with Kelly going home. Obviously, I like her personality, but she went really far in her season because she made some really surprising stuff, and she really showed her true colors in like unconventional. Like she worked with it so well. And I just liked her play with things. She was much more creative than it seems so far that Stanley is. Like the couple looks he's made, that's all I've seen from him is these 2 looks from this season, and they're just not amazing. And it's just like, how could you give it to that that ugly green frumpy moldy looking dress stayed, whereas her like ice skater chic was whatever.
No.
That's a disagree for me, but regardless, Kelly went home on episode 2. Do we have anything else to say? I will say one more thing about the runway before I forget. Because this does not happen in the normal season, and I didn't notice it in the last All-Stars, but all the models walked out again, like the end of an actual runway show.
Yeah, and that was really cool.
Yeah, so they did that last episode, but I thought it was just because it was the collections. But they made it feel like then it was a full collection, even though it was 15 different designers. So all the designs came out again in order and walked the little phallic runway, which was kind of cool. But otherwise, do you have anything else to say about the runway or anything? Because otherwise I'll get to my quotes.
Not really, other than I'm heartbroken, and I will be forever. I will never get over this.
Well, we were so excited when we saw she was going to be in All-Stars, and I know, at least from, like, Twitter and everything, like, a lot of people were pumped because she's got such a fun personality, and she's, like, one of the younger contestants and feels young and fresh, and then she goes home on episode 2, it's just like, you might lose some viewers. Not us, obviously, but you can lose some. Oh, now Maggie.
They should feel threatened.
I need a co-host. These things will be 8 hours long. All right, let's move on then.
Yeah.
Okay, so my quotes of the week, I've got quite a few here. Anthony said early on in the episode, I've got enough chemicals in my hair to wipe out a nation. And he has a perfectly coiffed head of hair, I will say that. Next up, we had Helen in a classic, like, Mean Girls line. Is bleach flammable? As she's bleaching her outfit.
Is butter a car?
Yes, is bleach flammable? And, like, the person she was talking to, I don't know if it's Stanley or who, was just like, yes. Then Anne, when she was talking to all of the designers in general, she said, it's distress, not a mess. So, like, distress with purpose, don't just rip it apart. Then Anthony, and maybe, so far my quote of this season, hilarious. He says, Dear God, it's Anthony. Again. Please don't let me burn up on Project Runway All-Stars, as it would be embarrassing to have lost before and then catch on fire the second damn time. He's just so theatrical and over the top, and I love it. Dear God, it's Anthony. Again. I love it. And, like, someone was watching it, maybe it was, I can't remember, somebody was watching it and was just like, oh my God. Then Amanda said, as her look was coming down the runway, I'm not trying to bore Isaac Mizrahi. And he does always say, like, don't bore me, kids, and stuff like that.
Kids.
But we didn't hear much from Amanda, so I definitely wanted to pull that quote, because it's true. Like, even though you want to make a design that's true to you, you do have to remember your judges. And Isaac Mizrahi obviously has a little more sway than certain, like, your guest judge, right?
Yeah.
Next, Edmund said, I think the element I add is an ultimate sexiness. Which is like all Edmund does is make sexy club dresses. But he's like, the element that I add, like everybody else is like, water, fire, earth, sexiness. Like, God. Next up, Isaac to Kelly when she was on the runway getting critiqued. Before we found out if she was in the bottom or top, she's like telling her like story, and he's like, we should have lunch sometime, you're hilarious. And her face when he said that, because could you imagine legitimately being invited to lunch by like a huge designer and just be like even though it'll probably never happen, and she went home literally 2 minutes later, still it's just like, oh my, yes, right now, like, come to my deli. No. Then Isaac, about Stanley's look, said, the apocalypse happened during a quinceañera. Which, then how did that win? Like, how did that stay? But whatever. I thought it was funny, though, because, yeah, it's this, like, outrageous ball gown ripped to shreds. And then my last quote, as Kelly was leaving, said, she was pretty positive, to be honest, when she came back in the room. She said, I know my aesthetic isn't for everybody, but that she felt like she still had a good time on All-Stars, and, you know, was like, maybe All-Stars just wasn't the place for me.
Yeah.
So, bye, Kelly. We will miss you. But her Rack Addict brand is being pretty successful, and at least now she's got a little more publicity.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about this week?
No, I mean, I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I'm hurting.
It was a rough episode to me. With the challenge, just didn't seem like a real All-Starsy fit, and then no one really seemed to, like, nail it, like, or hit it out of the park.
No.
And then, we lost Kelly, which sucks. So the preview for next week is that they're going to a fancy dinner, and that who they sit with at the table will be their partner, and I think it was preordained who they sat with. And then our guest judge will be Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay.
Which at least is an actress who's been around a while, and I don't know if she has anything to do with fashion, but at least she's someone who we've heard of and has been around for a few decades, rather than some brand new actress never heard of.
Yeah.
I will say 2 things for this episode of the podcast. If you heard any noises like this, I apologize. It's extremely cold where we are. -7 wind chill. We have to turn the car off to record. We're both sitting here freezing right now. But that's our jackets and our coats, so I do apologize because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and those noises are frustrating. And then second, if you want to go back and listen to this podcast again and do a drinking game every time I was forced to say post-apocalypse, take a drink. No, you will die by the end. Please don't do that. But otherwise, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at RavRunway. We're also on Podiant, Apple Podcasts, and iTunes, and WordPress. So you can listen to us any way that you want. Share us, leave us reviews and ratings. That helps us a ton. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next week.